This is a lecture from Open Tuition. For the free lecture notes that go with this podcast, please visit opentuition.com.
Let's look at question 4 of section B of the paper F5 specimen paper. Look straight to the requirement. The requirement assesses the financial performance of TIP using the information given above, which we'll look at shortly. And note, and very importantly here, there are 5 marks available for calculations and 10 marks available for discussion. And the big danger here is that, well, you'll know from having watched my lectures, the big danger is that a lot of people just come out with a huge table of figures, spend ages on the calculator and get percentages all over the place. Well, I don't care how many percentages or whatever you calculate, that's only going to get you 5 marks maximum. Far more importantly is interpreting it. And not writing a lot. I mean, the examiner always writes more than she expects. She knows people learn from it. But much more important than the figures themselves are explaining what the figures mean, whether things are good, whether things are bad. Only briefly. And even if you make a mistake on the numbers, you don't lose marks twice. If you've made a sensible comment on your figures, you'll get the marks for the comments even if your figures are wrong and you've lost marks for the numbers. All right, now I'm not going to write a great long essay. We'll talk through these. I'll look at the information and I'll discuss it. I'm not going to write it down. It'd take far too long and be boring. So listen carefully, but do read her answer and do learn from it. So, I had actually written the question down there, but so let's start having a look. Thatcher International Park is a theme park and has for many years been a successful business which has traded profitably. About 3 years ago, the directors decided to capitalise on their success, and as a result, they reduced the expenditure made on new thrill rides. They reduced routine maintenance where possible, deciding instead to repair equipment when it broke down, and made a commitment to regularly increase admission prices. It doesn't actually look very, very good. They're going to put prices up and make things worse by the looks of it. Once an admission price is paid, customers can use any of the facilities and rides for free. These steps increase profits considerably, enabling good dividends to be paid to the owners and bonuses to the directors. Required, assess the financial performance of TIP using the information above. Now, I must admit, with it being a specimen exam, the examiner slightly, in a sense, cheated. This was an earlier question. It had been set several years earlier as a 25-mark question, where you were asked both financial and non-financial performance. She's cut it down to 15. And so although there are certainly not a lot of non-financial things you could say, like, you know, the number of visitors, whether it's gone up, down, and so on. And there was more information in the original question. Here, she did want you to concentrate on financial. So let's have a look through. We're comparing the 2 years. That's all we can do, obviously. Last year, 2011. This year, 2012. And remember, sorry pausing, but remember, don't spend all your time on numbers. There's quite a lot of numbers you could look at, but much more important is the comment. I would start at the top and work down, quite honestly, commenting about them. First of all, sales. The sales revenue. The sales revenue has certainly grown, How much has it grown by? It's grown 5320 minus 5250. I can't get rid of that, there we are. Which is 5320 minus 5250. The sales revenue has grown by 70,000, which on its own means nothing at all, more sensibly in percentage terms. So it was 5250. 70 over 5250, it's grown by 1.33%. So it has grown, and obviously, not obviously, but certainly growth is what we're after. Had it been falling, I'd be desperately upset. However, it is very low growth because the average rate of inflation is around 1% a year. They've only grown by, was that right? I have a feeling I might have got too high a figure anyway. No, I'm right. They've grown by 1.3. So I say I'm not writing all the comments down, but I would say that is very small growth. And it's why has it happened? I think it's because of the fall in numbers of visitors. You see the revenue per visitor last year we got 5250. There were 150, remember I'm working in thousands, 150,000 visitors. So last year the revenue per visitor was 35. This year, what is it? 5320. There are only 140,000 visitors. It's 38. So there, the increase in price is going up by $3 on 35. Um, 8.57%. So we have put prices up quite substantially, 8.5% when inflation's only around 1%. The problem is, of course, that that's almost certainly the reason why we've got fewer visitors, and as a result, the overall revenue has gone up very little. So, although on the one hand we've got growth, it's something I'd be worried about, to be quite honest, for the future. What about expenses? Wages? Well, wages have gone down. You could look at this several ways. I mean, obviously, you don't really need to do numbers. Just to say that wages have reduced, that is clearly a good sign. It was one of their aims. We have managed to cut the revenue quite substantially. I don't see any point in putting a percentage fall, 302.5. What you could do if you want, but bear in mind what I said, don't waste too much time on the numbers. If you could do it as a percent of revenue, because you would normally expect most wages, not all obviously, but most wages to go up and down with the number of customers and the revenue. As a percent of revenue, last year it was 2,500 on 5,250. It was 47.6% of the revenue. This year, 2,200 on revenue of 5,320. It's 41.4% of revenue. So there, they have done well. I don't think there's much else we can say. I'll run down them. Routine maintenance. And it did say earlier we are going to reduce routine maintenance where possible, and fine, it has reduced. I don't see any need whatsoever to do any numbers on it. It's reduced quite a lot percentage-wise, but I mean it's not a massive amount overall anyway. However, They decided instead to repair equipment when it broke down. So although routine maintenance has fallen, repairs has gone up. And in fact, look at the total of the two together. The maintenance plus repairs in 2011, in total, it was 340, 80 plus 260. In 2012, 70 plus 320, it's gone up to 390. Now, there could be other reasons we don't know about, but it does look, and I would write, remember, even though I'm not writing here, I would write that I want to investigate that, because if the only reason repairs has gone up so much is because we're doing less maintenance, then that was actually a rather bad move. We'd have been better off if we'd have carried on doing the same level of maintenance if it had meant lower repairs. So that worries me. Director salaries have gone up, obviously. They've gone up 150 to 160, so they've gone up by 10 on 150. So in percentage terms, they've gone up by 6.67%. Well, that's great for the directors, obviously, but the average rate of inflation is 1%. It seems a bit greedy. What's more, of course, they've had bonuses. And so their total pay has actually gone from last year 165, salary plus bonus, this year 178. So the increase is what? 13 on 165. In percentage terms, their overall pay has gone up by 7.88%. Which I think that's something to be queried, given that the revenue only went up by 1.3% or something, and given that the inflation is only 1%. I'll come back to one thing on that in a second, but before I do, other costs, including depreciation, have fallen. Not much we can say there. All right, it's gone down. Certainly depreciation may have gone down because we're not investing in new thrill rides. But otherwise, we can't say a lot, and it's not a massive fall. Okay, what else? So other costs, including depreciation. I can't say a lot there, to be perfectly honest. It's not gone down very much. And of course, look at the book value of the assets. The book value of the assets has fallen. That's because we're closing thrill rides. I'm not therefore surprised that depreciation should have fallen. And therefore, other costs have fallen. But there's not actually much else we could say without more detail. And a couple of other general points. Dividend paid, great. As far as shares are concerned, that's gone up quite substantially, obviously. Although, why has it gone up? We need to check. Has it gone up because of profit going up, or because they're distributing more? Well, profit has gone up. I mean, the overall, they have done quite nicely. There's been an increase in profit of what it went. It's 1372. It was 1045. So in percentage terms, it's gone up, I think my arithmetic's right, 31.3%, which is an achievement. Despite the slightly negative things I've said, they have managed to get the revenue up a bit, but they have managed to cut the costs quite substantially overall. And so there is there a healthy increase in profit. As a result, they've managed to put dividends up. The only other thing I would look at, since the information's there, is the return on capital. For 2011, they made a profit of 1045 on a capital at the start of the year, or the book value of assets, 13,000. Uh, 8.04%, and perhaps I should strictly say return on assets rather than return on capital. Sorry. 2012, profit 1372 on book value assets 12,000. Uh, 11.43%. So overall, they have had quite a good year. The big benefit, though, one final look back at the table, the big saving, the big thing that's made the difference all the way through, is the drop in wages. That's where they've saved 300. Everything else, I don't know, well, it's certainly much less significant. Okay, that was enough chat about that one.